The elevator chimed softly as it reached the top floor of the Wallace Grand Houston. Polished marble gleamed under the golden lights, and the air smelled faintly of orchids and money. Ethan X. Wallace stood in front of the full-length mirror at the end of the hallway, adjusting the stiff collar of a uniform he wasn't used to wearing. Navy blue, starch-heavy, embroidered with a modest housekeeping team patch. The irony of it all nearly made him smile. From the corner office he once ruled, with its bulletproof windows and sweeping views of the city, to a janitor's closet and a mop cart, it was a steep fall, at least in appearance. But Ethan didn't feel diminished. He felt ... curious, unburdened, free, even. Under the name Elijah Mensah, born and raised in Houston, Ethan was used to moving through the world with calculated charm and ruthless efficiency. Boardrooms bowed to him. Journalists romanticized his legacy. Women admired him, or at least the version of him they saw in glossy magazines and billion-dollar deals. But after his broken engagement with Liling Zhang and the hollow applause of corporate mergers, he had begun to suspect that none of it was real. Not the loyalty, not the love. Elijah, he whispered to his reflection, practicing the Ghanaian accent he'd worked on for weeks. His gaze hardened. You clean floors now, and you listen. Downstairs, the hotel lobby was coming alive with its usual rhythm: wheels of luggage, hurried guests, clipped voices in Bluetooth earpieces. He pushed the cart forward, blending into the background, and took the service elevator to the third floor, where he'd been assigned. The scent of lemon disinfectant greeted him like a handshake, and that's when he saw her, bent over a supply cart, arranging bottles of glass cleaner and folded rags. Isabella Izzy Ramirez hummed softly under her breath. Her dark brown hair was pulled into a braid, a few loose strands clinging to her cheek from the humid morning. Her eyes, warm and alert, met his with polite curiosity. You knew? She asked, glancing at his badge. He nodded. Elijah. First day, her smile came slowly but sincerely. Well, welcome to the team, Elijah. Hope you don't mind dirty bathrooms and impatient guests. I've seen worse, he said, and the accent sat naturally in his voice, soft, thoughtful, West African in lilt. She chuckled. Then you'll be fine. They worked side by side that morning, cleaning luxury suites that cost more per night than Izzy's rent for the month. She moved quickly, methodically, while Ethan mimicked her rhythm, careful not to reveal his unfamiliarity with tasks he should have mastered. She noticed, but didn't comment. So Ghana, huh? She asked between rooms, shaking out fresh bedsheets. Yes. Accra, moved here 2 weeks ago. Must be different, very. She leaned her hip against the doorframe, studying him. You're quiet. Most new folks talk too much or try to impress the supervisors. He met her gaze, steady. I didn't come here to impress anyone. Izzy gave a small nod, clearly intrigued by the end of the shift. His shoulders ached and his shirt clung to his back. But for the first time in years, Ethan felt present, grounded, real, in the break room, over instant coffee and leftover empanadas. Someone's aunt had dropped off. Izzy sat across from him. Her laugh was softer now, her tone less guarded. You learn fast, she admitted. Most people mess up the guest towels or forget to restock the minibar. You didn't. He offered. A modest shrug. Good teacher. Izzy lowered her gaze for a moment, as if measuring whether or not to say what was on her mind. My mom used to clean houses before she got sick. Now it's just me and my little brother. He's 17, wants to go to college, but ... She trailed off, the weight of reality pulling at her expression. I'm sorry, Ethan said, genuinely. That must be hard. She met his eyes, and something unspoken passed between them, two lives from different galaxies. colliding in this tiny fluorescent-lit room, separated by wealth and history, yet united by quiet resilience. Later that evening in the penthouse Ethan technically still owned. He stood by the window, looking down at the street where the valet parked luxury cars. The disguise hung neatly on the back of a chair. His phone buzzed, a message from Lilling. "Back in Houston. Let's talk." Too much at stake. He deleted it without replying. He wasn't ready to return to that world, not when, for the first time in years, someone looked at him and saw a man, not a brand, and he couldn't stop thinking about Izzy's laugh, or the way she tucked her braid under her cap, or how her hands moved with purpose and dignity, even when scrubbing another person's sink. He had started this journey to escape illusion. He didn't know yet that love would demand a truth far more dangerous. The days began to blur. Morning shifts turned into late afternoons, hallways into conversations, and conversations, somehow, into something Ethan hadn't expected when he first pulled on the disguise of Elijah Mensah. Izzy was magnetic in her own quiet way, not the kind of woman who demanded attention, but the kind who kept it. She'd become his anchor inside the dizzying charade. The only person in the hotel who didn't see him through a lens of power or myth. "Let me guess," she said one Thursday as they pushed their carts down the east wing. "You were a teacher." "Back in Ghana, or maybe a poet," Ethan chuckled. "A poet? Why?" "I don't know," she replied, shrugging. "You talk like someone who listens to silence. That's rare." He glanced at her. "You believe people can change?" Izzy nodded. "Absolutely, but not the way most people think. Change isn't loud, it's in the little things. The way someone breathes before they answer, or chooses not to." He looked at her longer than he should have. She blushed slightly, but didn't look away. By week 3, the staff had grown used to Elijah's quiet presence. Some called him the ghost because he moved with such care, barely speaking unless spoken to. But Izzy, for reasons she didn't understand herself, had begun to draw him out. Sometimes they'd eat lunch behind the service dock, away from cameras and supervisors. He'd ask about her dreams. She'd deflect. But little by little, her guard began to fall. "I want to open a cafe," she finally admitted one afternoon, "right there in the East End. Where I grew up. You know that strip by Harrisburg and Lockwood?" Ethan's heart skipped. He did know it too well. He had signed a confidential redevelopment proposal just a month before a Wallace Group initiative to gentrify a 5-block radius near East End, a stretch that included Izzy's dream location. "I know it," he said, voice even. "It's nothing fancy." She continued, "But I want a place where abuelitas can sit and talk over cinnamon coffee, where kids can do homework. Somewhere that smells like hope." He nodded slowly, the weight of her words landing like a stone in his stomach. "And your brother?" he asked, needing to ground the moment. "Benjamin, 17. Smarter than I'll ever be. Thinks I'm wasting my time with mops and gloves." "Maybe he's right. He's not," Ethan said firmly. "There's dignity in what you do." She tilted her head at him. "You talk like someone who lost something important." "Maybe I did," he replied. Neither spoke for a long minute. Meanwhile, upstairs in the executive suite, Lilling Jong stood at the minibar, swirling a glass of imported scotch. Her stilettos clicked across the marble floor as she watched the city lights blink on, one by one. Ethan hadn't returned her texts. Not since she landed in Houston a week ago. That was unlike him. She scrolled through her emails until she found the file. Project Eastlight Phase 1, Wallace Grand Development Plan. The numbers were astounding. The land purchase alone would triple Wallace Group's Q4 revenue projections. But it wasn't just about business. Lilling knew Ethan, knew what they were before and what they could be again. She just had to find him. And then, something strange. She spotted him on a hotel security feed, dressed in housekeeping blues, pushing a mop cart. First, she thought it was a glitch, a prank. But zooming in, she saw it, the same posture, the unmistakable eyes. "What the hell are you doing, Ethan?" she whispered down on the loading dock. Ethan and Izzy were sharing a mango soda and watching the sun dip behind the skyline. "What would you do?" she asked him quietly, "if you had everything?" "I don't know," he answered. "Maybe. I'd give it all away just to see who would still stay." She looked at him, puzzled. Why? Because it's hard to know who loves you when everything around you is shining. Izzy tilted her head. "You say things like that, ... and then go back to being all mysterious again." He smiled faintly. "Maybe mystery is all I have left." She leaned back on her elbows, eyes following a bird overhead. "You ever think about the people who clean these hotels? The ones who see everything but are seen by no one, all the time?" She turned toward him. "That's what I like about you, Elijah. You see people, you really do." And for the first time since donning his disguise, Ethan felt the cost of the lie creeping in. Not because she'd find out, but because she deserved to know the truth, and he couldn't give it. Not yet, not when so much more was at stake. Later that night, Ethan returned to his penthouse under the cover of a hoodie and a back entrance. The city buzzed beneath him, but the silence in the room was louder. He opened the laptop on the counter, pulled up the redevelopment plan for East End, and stared at the map. Izzy's Dream Cafe sat smack in the middle of Lot 48, a parcel Wallace Group was set to demolish in 3 months. He leaned back, eyes closed, throat tight. If he stayed silent, he'd keep her trust. For now, if he confessed, he risked losing the only person who'd ever seen him for who he truly was. Either way, the clock had started ticking. The sky over Houston was thick with storm clouds, the kind that wrapped the city in an eerie silence before the rain broke. In the Wallace Grand service hallway, the fluorescent lights flickered above Ethan's head as he stood outside the staff locker room, gripping his phone. He'd just gotten the alert. Demolition proposal for Lot 48, approved by City Council. Public announcement. Friday morning. Izzy's Cafe Dream, the cinnamon coffee, the abuelitas. The warmth, it would all be flattened. He stared at the screen, as if looking long enough could make the news reverse. The timing was brutal. 2 hours ago, she had handed him a sketch of the cafe layout drawn in pencil on the back of a hotel napkin. He hadn't said a word in the break room. Izzy was slicing a piece of tres leches cake she'd brought from home. Mama Alina said to share it with the people who matter, she told Elijah, handing him a plate. "So, here." He accepted it, heart tightening in his chest. "Have you ever trusted someone?" she said softly, "so much that it scared you?" His fork froze midair. "Why do you ask?" Izzy hesitated. "I just feel like this thing with you, Elijah. It's different. I know we're just friends. I know. But I haven't talked to someone like this since my dad passed. You don't pretend. You just ... see me." His chest felt like it might cave in. Before he could speak, the intercom crackled. "All staff to ballroom foyer. Emergency inspection." They stood, exchanged a glance, and hurried down. The foyer was chaos. Supervisors yelling, guests watching with narrowed eyes. Apparently, a water pipe had burst under the ballroom floor. The hotel's biggest corporate client, a tech conglomerate hosting their annual gala, was threatening to cancel the contract. And there, in the middle of it all, was Liling Zhang. Graceful, poised, and dangerous. Her eyes met Ethan's. She raised one perfectly arched brow. "Elijah," she said, with ice in her voice. "Or should I say Ethan?" The room spun. Someone gasped. A housekeeper dropped her clipboard. Izzy's face turned from confusion to disbelief to devastation in seconds. "What did you just call him?" she asked. Lilling took a step closer, lips curled. "Oh, sweetie, you didn't know. That's Ethan X. Wallace, CEO, Billionaire, and, in case you haven't heard, the man who just bought your entire neighborhood to bulldoze it into a luxury district." A silence heavier than cement fell over the room. Izzy turned to Ethan. No, not Elijah anymore. Her eyes wide and wild. "Tell me she's lying." He opened his mouth, but the words felt like glass. "Izzy, I was going to. You lied to me," she whispered. "Every day. I didn't plan this. I needed to see what was real." She laughed, bitter and breaking. "So, you played poor to find a soul, is that it? You cleaned floors like it was some spiritual retreat. No, I didn't expect to meet you." "Right. And I didn't expect the one person who saw me to be standing behind the bulldozer aimed at my dream." "Please." She shook her head, her voice shaking. "My mom trusted you, my brother. I trusted you. I love you," he said the words coming out like a last breath. Izzy stared at him. And for a second, the air held. Then she whispered, "No, Ethan, you love control. And that's not the same thing." She turned and walked out, past the staff, past the supervisors, out of the hotel. Ethan didn't move. Couldn't. Lilling leaned in, her voice low. "You wanted to see what was real. Well, there it is. Pain. Consequence. Welcome back to your kingdom, Ethan." 2 days passed. Ethan stayed hidden in his penthouse. He didn't eat much, didn't return calls. The press had already caught the story. CEO goes undercover as janitor, ends in scandal. Blogs had a field day. Wall Street didn't care. But Ethan did. Benjamin showed up at his door. "You have 5 minutes before I call the cops," the boy said, voice trembling with anger. Ethan stepped aside. Benjamin paced the room, too furious to sit. "My sister cried for 6 hours straight. You were the first good thing in her life since my dad. You know that?" "I never meant to hurt her," Ethan said quietly. "You bought the block where she was going to build her cafe. That's not a lie, that's a weapon. I didn't know when I met her, but you knew before you told her, and you let her fall anyway." Ethan looked away. "I'm sorry." Benjamin grabbed a folder from his backpack and threw it. On the table, "Those are community petitions. We've been fighting the buyout for months." Izzy didn't want to believe it was hopeless. She believed in people. He started to leave. "I want to fix it," Ethan said. Benjamin stopped at the door. "Then stop the demolition. Don't donate. Don't build some PR cover-up park. Just stop, or leave her the hell alone." And then he was gone. Later that night, Ethan stood in front of the City Planning Board's digital archive, fingers hovering over the approval forms. One click could freeze the East End project indefinitely. But it would also mean forfeiting millions, and Lilling would go to war. He stared at the lot number. Lot 48, Izzy's dream. Her future, his truth. He took a breath and clicked. Project halted. Lot 48 indefinitely removed from Wallace's group expansion. And with it, something in him cracked open. For the first time, he chose not profit, not power, but love, even if he'd already lost it. 3 weeks passed. The ballroom floor had been repaired. The tech conglomerate rebooked for next year. Wallace Grand returned to its pristine, polished, normal. But for Ethan, nothing felt normal. He had shut down the East End redevelopment, costing the company nearly $12 million in projected revenue. Investors grumbled. Lilling filed an official notice to dissolve her merger proposal. And the media moved on to the next scandal. But Izzy didn't. She hadn't spoken to him since. That day in the foyer, her shifts continued, different floors, different supervisors, but Ethan made sure to stay invisible. If she saw him, she gave no sign. She had become a stranger again, one he missed more with every breath. Late one night, he walked past Café Ruiz, the tiny coffee shop 4 blocks from East End that Izzy loved. The windows were dark. The chalkboard outside still said closed for repairs in curling script, but through the glass, he could see someone inside. Izzy, she was scrubbing the walls herself, alone. No music, no laughter. Just a bucket, a sponge, and quiet fury. He watched from across the street, hands stuffed deep in his coat pockets. This was what he had taken from her, not just trust, but safety. Her safe place. Her belief that good things could be built from hard work. He'd cracked the foundation of everything she stood on. He turned away before she saw him. The next morning, he visited Mama Alina. She sat on her porch in a faded floral robe, a blanket over her knees, and a Bible in her lap. "You got nerves, Menino," she said, not looking up. "Coming here after what you did." "I didn't come to ask for forgiveness," Ethan said. "I came to listen. That's all you'll allow." Mama Alina finally looked at him. Her eyes, though tired, were sharp. "She loved you," she said, in silence, in prayers. She wouldn't say it out loud, but I saw it. It was in the way she smiled after work, the way she saved that damn mango soda can you gave her. And you saw the good in her and still chose to lie. "I know," he whispered. "What you did was more than deception. It was theft. You took her belief in something real." He nodded, unable to argue. "But," she said, her voice softening, "if you want her heart again, don't knock on her door with money, knock with humility. She doesn't need you to fix her life. She just needs to know you finally understand it." 2 days later, Izzy found a letter in her locker. No name, just a folded piece of paper, handwritten in neat, careful strokes. "I told you once that I didn't come here to impress anyone." That was the only part that was true. Everything else, the name, the past, the job, was a lie I told to escape my own reflection. But then, I met you, and suddenly, I wanted to be someone better. Not richer, not louder, just, honest. I stopped the demolition. Lot 48 is yours. Again, if you still want it. No strings. No PR. Just a man trying to make right what he broke. I'll be gone from the hotel by Friday. If you ever want to find me, you know where to look. Izzy read the note 3 times. Her hands trembled slightly. She didn't cry. Not this time. She just folded it gently and slipped it into her apron pocket. Friday came. Ethan clocked out for the last time at 6:12 p.m. No send-off, no fanfare. Just the quiet beep of the staff ID scanner and the squeak of his cart rolling down the back. Hallway one last time. He took the service elevator to the basement, where his car waited. But as the door slid open, he found someone already standing there. Izzy, arms crossed, face unreadable. He blinked, caught between disbelief and hope. "I was going to let you leave," she said. "I really was." He swallowed hard. "Then why are you here?" "Because you're the only person I ever met who made me feel like I wasn't invisible." She stepped into the elevator, hit the door close button, and turned to face him. "But you broke me, Ethan. You looked me in the eyes every day and told half-truths. That's worse than silence." "I know," he said, "and I'll carry that forever." She studied him for a long moment. "Then you gave me back the cafe lot. Why? Because you deserve to build something no one can take from you. Because I didn't want to be the man who destroyed what he couldn't understand." The elevator stopped at the lobby. The doors opened. Neither moved. Izzy let out a breath. "I'm not saying I forgive you. I'm not saying this fixes anything. I don't expect it to. But if you ever want to come by the cafe, once I open it, you might find a chair waiting." Ethan's throat closed around the lump rising in it. "I'd like that," he said. She walked out first, leaving him behind. In the elevator, heart thudding like a drum, and for the first time since becoming Elijah, Ethan didn't feel like he was pretending. 6 months later, a soft golden light bathed East End in the kind of warmth only spring in Houston could bring. Children ran through the sidewalks with popsicles melting down their fingers. Wind rustled through chain-link fences and freshly painted murals. And on the corner of Harrisburg and Lockwood, nestled between a tire shop and a laundromat, stood Calf Alma, modest, beautiful, alive. Inside, the walls were lined with old photographs donated by neighbors. Shelves filled with second-hand books wrapped around hand-carved tables. The menu was handwritten daily on a chalkboard. And near the register, a small plaque read, "Dedicated to those who refuse to be invisible." Izzy stood behind the counter, wearing a burgundy apron, her braid tucked behind one shoulder. She was talking to a group of teenagers, offering them a quiet place to study after school. When the bell above the door rang, she didn't look up at first. Just said, "I'll be right with you." Then she heard a familiar voice. "No rush. I'm not going anywhere." She turned. There he was. Ethan. No disguise. No suit, just jeans, a clean white t-shirt, and a small bouquet of yellow marigolds in his hands. He looked different now, not less polished, but lighter, more honest. Izzy walked out from behind the counter slowly, wiping her hands on a towel. Her eyes held his, calm but firm. "You're 3 months late," she said. He smiled. "I thought about coming earlier. I wanted you to have this place." Before I brought anything else into it, she tilted her head. "What changed?" "I did," he said. "I stepped down from Wallace's group. I'm not the CEO anymore." Her brows lifted. "Seriously?" "Seriously, I still own part of it. But I handed the reins over. I wanted a life I could recognize when I looked in the mirror." She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "What are you doing now?" "Community development," he said. "Small projects, real ones, not bulldozers. I'm working with a nonprofit, rebuilding libraries and local housing. I thought maybe this time I'd build things that don't have my name on them." Her gaze softened, just enough for him to see it. He held out the flowers. "These are for your mama. I remember she liked these." Izzy took them, her fingers brushing his. She turned toward the back, calling, "Mama, you have a visitor." From the kitchen, Mama Alina emerged with a wide smile. "Ah, the janitor prince finally shows his face again." Ethan laughed. "I missed you too." She hugged him quick and strong and whispered something in Spanish that made Izzy roll her eyes. He looked around. "The place is beautiful." "Izzy, it's everything you dreamed." She nodded, almost, still adding things, still figuring it out. "Good," he said. "You deserve something that grows with you." There was a pause, not tense, just full. Then Izzy asked, "Are you staying?" He swallowed. "If there's room for me." She nodded slowly, walked back behind the counter, and pulled out a mug. "Your usual?" He smiled. "Still remember. Always." She poured the coffee, slid it across the counter. He took a sip. It was warm, slightly sweet, full of cinnamon and something else he couldn't quite name, something like hope. Later that evening, after the chairs were stacked and the lights dimmed, they sat outside on the curb, watching the neighborhood breathe. "Do you think people like us ever get it right?" Izzy asked. "I don't think it's about getting it right," Ethan said. "I think it's about choosing the right thing when it matters. And love." She asked, without looking at him. He was quiet for a beat. "I think love is when you stop trying to impress someone and start trying to understand them, even if it costs you." Izzy nodded, then leaned her head gently against his shoulder. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. Some stories don't end with a grand gesture. Some end with two people sitting in the quiet, side by side, having finally chosen each other for the right reasons, not for appearances, not for power, but because in a world built to ignore people like them, they saw each other. And this time, they chose not to look away.